18 U.S. lawmakers urge Biden to block China's use of RISC-V. Exiled Tibetans expose false narrative of CCP schools. China proposes allowing unlabeled GMO, sparking worry among citizens. China's elite moving wealth abroad to protect assets from CCP exploitation, says Princeling. Various signs indicate that the Chinese Communist Party's economy may collapse. U.S. lawmakers urge Biden to block China's use of RISC-V. RISC-V chip technology is emerging as a new battleground in the U.S.-China tech war. RISC-V is an open-source chip architecture that can be used freely, challenging expensive proprietary designs from companies like ARM and Intel. It is critical for products ranging from smartphone processors to advanced AI chips. The technology is widely used in China. Now, 18 U.S. lawmakers from both parties have written to urge the Biden administration to quickly implement policies to prevent China from gaining dominance in RISC-V. The lawmakers included 5 Democrats along with Republican leaders of the House China Select Committee. They asked how the administration can leverage existing export control orders to require U.S. companies to get export licenses before collaborating with Chinese firms on RISC-V. While RISC-V collaboration can significantly advance the U.S. semiconductor industry, it should promote technical progress rather than aid China's geopolitical interests, the legislators wrote. Last month, some lawmakers, including Republican heads of House committees and Senators Marco Rubio and Mark Warner, cited national security in urging RISC-V action. House China Committee Chair Mike Gallagher said commerce should require export licenses for U.S. trade with Chinese entities on RISC-V tech. The Commerce Department spokesperson said the secretary has received the letter and will respond appropriately. The open-source nature of RISC-V makes it freely available, but it can compete with expensive proprietary designs from ARM and Intel. This disruptive technology is critical for products from smartphones to advanced AI chips. The RISC-V's accessibility has allowed it to gain significant adoption in China. Now, U.S. officials are concerned about allowing China to take dominance in this critical technology. They urge the Biden administration to quickly implement export controls and other policies to regulate collaboration with Chinese companies on RISC-V development. While the lawmakers recognize the importance of RISC-V collaboration for advancing the U.S. semiconductor industry, they want to ensure it does not end up aiding China's geopolitical agenda. Striking the right balance will be crucial as RISC-V emerges as a new frontier in the technology race between the U.S. and China. The partisan call to action highlights rising concerns from U.S. leaders across government. They want policies in place to protect U.S. national and economic security interests regarding this important technology. The Biden administration faces growing pressure to take swift action on export controls and other measures to maintain U.S. competitiveness in RISC-V and prevent China from taking the lead. Exiled Tibetans expose false narrative of CCP schools. The Canadian Embassy in Beijing expressed concern about the schools on social media and called on China to stop the practice, provoking Kong to demand the embassy's account be deleted. On Tuesday, October 31, the Canadian Embassy's official Weibo account posted urging China to cease forcing Tibetan children into boarding schools, saying they should be free to learn their history, language, and culture. CCTV reporter Kong Linlin accused the embassy of being anti-China, defaming Chinese, inciting ethnic tensions, and trying to deprive Tibetan children of education and development. She called for Sina Weibo to delete the Canadian Embassy's account. The controversial post has since been censored, but the account remains active. According to Kong, she visited Tibetan boarding schools last month and said the government built them to help children in remote high-altitude areas. She claimed the schools implement bilingual Tibetan and Mandarin education. However, Tibetan Cyril Serendua, who previously held high positions in state banks and enterprises, refuted Kong's claims in an interview with RFA Mandarin, drawing from personal experience. He said the schools forcibly conduct brainwashing education in Mandarin in Kong is just a CCP propaganda tool. In 2019, Karendua exposed a boarding school in Tibet's Shui County that solely used Mandarin to indoctrinate students in communism and praise national leaders, eradicating Tibetan language, culture, history, and identity. The CCP's propaganda organs serve the party, he said, and Kong is just a mouthpiece whitewashing the CCP's assimilation policies in Tibet when in China. Lobsang Gyaltsen, Tibetan government in exile representative to Taiwan, revealed in an interview that in addition to Tibet, the CCP has also implemented boarding schools in Tibetan areas of Sichuan, Qinghai, and Gansu. At least 1 million Tibetan children are separated from their parents in these concentration camp-like schools. Contrary to CCP claims, education inside is entirely in Mandarin, not bilingual, eradicating Tibetan language and culture. Facing international pressure, the CCP now uses influencers and mouthpieces like Kong to portray happy Tibetan lives. But their propaganda aims to conceal the cultural genocide inside the boarding schools. Kong Linlin rose to notoriety in recent years as a representative wolf warrior journalist for CCP state media. In September 2018, while CCTV correspondent in London, she stormed a Conservative Party conference to decry their Hong Kong democracy support, slapping a staff member while being restrained. She was convicted of assault. Now, back in China, her recent Tibet propaganda shows she remains a key wolf warrior mouthpiece for the CCP regime. China proposes allowing unlabeled GMO, sparking worry among citizens. China's Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs recently released a draft amendment to regulations on labeling genetically modified organisms in agriculture. The controversial proposal says GMO labeling is only required when content exceeds 3% in products like soybeans, soy oil, corn, and corn oil. Below 3% would not require a GMO label. This has sparked debate among Chinese netizens concerned about losing their right as consumers to information and choice. The public comment period for the regulation runs until November 17th. Many netizens have voiced doubts, arguing the amendment would lead to widespread unlabeled GMO ending up on dinner tables, depriving consumers of information and choice. A soy seller in Heilongjiang province told RFA the government had banned sales of GMO soy, restricting it to animal feed, but now allowing unlabeled low GMO content below 3% is confusing and dangerous without oversight. She said many oils already lack labels and the real reason is likely insufficient grain output. Some Weibo users questioned what evidence shows under 3% GMO content is safe and doesn't require labeling. Do consumers have full information rights about food contents? Gang Haing professor in Japan told RFA that Japan has very strict GMO regulations, basically prohibiting GMO in food and requiring labeling even in rare cases. But in China, food could contain 30% GMO and you wouldn't know, especially imports like soy and ketchup, which already have very high GMO content. Weibo user Kudingcha wrote, "Why not just be factual and label it? If you allow 3% GMO without labels, then 10% unlabeled could happen too." Mufeng Shusen wrote, "Did China-US relations improve? Are large amounts of US GMO products going to be imported? Many countries regulate or ban GMO and gene-edited products covering GM crops and GM foods. For example, EU countries implement strict GM food laws including labeling to inform consumers. Some European countries also restrict GM crop cultivation. India allows some GM crops, but some states prohibit or limit GM crop planting. Australia, Japan, New Zealand, and others also have GM product regulations and labeling requirements. By raising the bar for GMO labeling from 0 to 3%, China's proposed amendment risks flooding the food supply with unlabeled GMO. Netizens worry this takes away consumer rights to information and choice when buying food. The proposal has drawn significant criticism at home and abroad as China moves to join countries with more relaxed GMO regulatory regimes. China's elite moving wealth abroad to protect assets from RCCP exploitation, says Prince Lin. The powerful descendants of veteran high-ranking Chinese Communist Party officials, known as princelings, are scrambling to move their substantial assets out of China. This capital flight is driven by tensions among political factions under Xi Jinping's authoritarian rule, as his anti-corruption campaigns encroach on the interests of the privileged CCP elite. Princelings have enjoyed special status, wealth, and influence for generations, but now they fear losing everything as Xi consolidates power through purging rivals. We are trying to move money out of China to prevent our assets from falling prey to CCP exploitation, said Fang Ming, a CCP princeling living abroad using a pseudonym. Two main factions have emerged in the CCP under the reform and opening up policy since Deng Xiaoping. The princelings represent business interests and the emerging wealthy class, while the Youth League faction has grassroots reformist backgrounds, but both are now in Xi's crosshairs despite their connections to former top officials. Xi follows Maoist principles, diverging from the openness advocated by Dean and others. Defense Minister Lai Shangfu, son of a former military official, is a recent example of a fallen princeling removed from his post in October. Li was implicated in a corruption probe, signaling Xi's distrust even of top brass. Shakeups in the rocket force point to paranoia over possible cups against Xi. Rather than protecting the privileged class, Xi's draconian COVID policies and crackdowns on tech giants have led to economic decline. Princelings have no ability to challenge Xi, and Xi oversees assets as the only way to preserve wealth. Capital outflows have surged since 2018, using clandestine channels to evade China's $50,000 per person limit. Small sums under $130,000 use intermediary accounts that are quickly emptied and closed. Sums up to $1.3 million exploit shell company accounts that are soon deregistered. Over $1.3 million uses a special cross-border bank transfer system not available to the public. Besides princelings, tycoons and middle-class Chinese are also fleeing, risking the economy. Several prominent princelings have already been purged. Deng, son of former leader Hu Yaobang, had his reformist magazine seized by authorities. Real estate tycoon Ren Ziqiang was jailed for 18 years for criticizing Xi. And Bang chairman Wu Xiaohuahai, former grandson-in-law of Deng Xiaoping, was jailed for 18 years. Rumors suggest General Liu Yazo could face harsh punishment. With overseas assets, princelings aim to weather the Xi era and await a possible post-Xi leadership more aligned with their interests in openness and protecting the privileged class. But their capital flight is accelerating China's economic decline. For now, the princelings have no power to directly challenge Xi's radical policies and consolidation of control through purges. Various signs indicate that the Chinese Communist Party's economy may collapse. Money flows reveal Chinese investors voting with their wallets amid economic troubles and social unrest under the CCP. Falling consumption and rising savings show capital fleeing China, a vote of no confidence in Xi Jinping's regime. The CCP blames critics for problems like financial instability, but the deteriorating economy is too conspicuous to hide, despite prosecuting those reporting accurately on issues like sinking employment. In reality, CCP involvement sabotages the economy, as recent history shows less performs better. Real estate and development present a prime case. Industry giants face severe crises amid broader decline from heavy CCP manipulation and devaluation. This stagnation exceeds a typical cycle. Ordinary Chinese people realize the gravity. Q2 growth was reportedly just 0.8%, but even that lacks credibility in a corrupt, data-faking country. With real estate crashes, falling consumption and exports, projected Q3 growth of 4.9% has no public trust. Looking ahead, tightened CCP controls likely mean continued stagnation. Foreign companies leaving shed jobs in real estate, related industries and manufacturing. The middle class also struggles as investors lose life savings, sunk into unfinished or never-to-be-completed property projects. Two main drivers of stagnation exist: internal CCP policies and external factors. Internally, corruption and lack of market signals prevent healthy growth. Externally, Western manufacturers accelerate their China exit, seeing the changing landscape and expecting reduced stability and greater decoupling ahead. Friendshoring also shifts production to less risky, trade-friendly countries closer to Western markets. Firms leaving China are unlikely to return, widening its economic gap. Other symptoms of collapse under the CCP include surging youth unemployment, reportedly around 20%, but possibly near 50% with those living with parents. Angry and resentful youth could become a destabilizing force. These and other factors spur wealthy Chinese to quickly sell mainland property before values fall further, transferring funds out of China into overseas investments like Japanese real estate. Beyond geography, owning property there can garner residence visas, offering an exit before collapse and CCP authoritarianism. The Chinese miracle once brightening the global economy will shine no more as capital flees and the CCP prioritizes power over healthy growth.